Have you ever wondered whether the Amish community you picture in your mind, horse-drawn buggy, Lancaster County farmland, plain dress, Pennsylvania countryside is actually representative of what Amish life looks like across 500 communities in 32 states, 3 Canadian provinces, and 1 South American country? Pinecraft, Florida. Pinecraft is a small neighborhood in Sarasota, Florida, and almost certainly the most unusual Amish settlement in North America. There are no horses. There are no buggies. Amish residents walk, ride bicycles, or travel on large adult-sized tricycles that have become the signature image of this community. Pinecraft residents play shuffleboard and bocce ball in the Florida sunshine, eat at local restaurants, and attend church in a simple community building rather than rotating homes. The population fluctuates dramatically by season in winter. Amish and Mennonite snowbirds arrive from Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana, staying for weeks or months before returning home. In summer, it empties to a fraction of its winter size. Holmes County. Holmes County, Ohio is the largest Amish settlement in the world, home to more than 40,000 Amish people, representing at least 11 distinct affiliations, ranging from the most progressive New Order churches to the most conservative Schwarzentrubber communities. A visitor driving through may pass a New Order farm where cell phones are sometimes permitted for business within a mile of a Schwarzentrubber homestead whose residents refuse to use bicycles, Velcro, indoor plumbing, or the orange slow-moving vehicle triangle. The Schwarzentroubers use gray reflective tape instead, having won federal court cases defending their right to do so. These two communities do not fellowship together. They do not intermarry. They occupy the same county and live by standards so different that an outsider familiar with one would barely recognize the other as the same tradition. Nebraska Amish. The Nebraska Amish of Mifflin County, Pennsylvania take their name not from the state of Nebraska, but from a white-top buggy brought to the community from Nebraska in the 19th century. And that white-top buggy remains one of the most immediately visible markers of this group today. The Nebraska Amish are considered by researchers to be among the most conservative Amish communities in North America, stricter in their dress standards than even the Schwarzentrubber Amish, whose conservatism is itself extreme by the standards of most other Amish affiliations. Nebraska Amish women wear dresses that are heavier, plainer, and more restrictive in cut than those of any other group. The community occupies a specific region of Mifflin County that it has inhabited for generations and has maintained its distinctive standards with minimal change across those generations. There are multiple affiliations within the Nebraska Amish themselves, at least 4 or 5 distinct groups within this already conservative community, which reflects the pattern of division over fine points of ordnung that characterizes the most conservative Amish communities generally. Most Americans who visit Lancaster County or Holmes County have never heard of the Nebraska Amish. Most Amish scholars consider them among the most important communities to understand if you want to grasp the full range of what the Amish tradition contains. Adams County. The Swiss Amish community of Adams County, Indiana, is unusual in ways that begin with language and extend through nearly every visible aspect of community life. Most Amish communities in America speak Pennsylvania Dutch, a German dialect that developed among Swiss and Alsatian immigrants in Pennsylvania over several centuries, and that has been the primary language of Amish domestic life since the community's founding. The Adams County community speaks something different, a Swiss-German dialect that reflects their distinct ancestry and that is not mutually intelligible with Pennsylvania Dutch. An Amish person from Lancaster County and an Amish person from Adams County who meet at a community event may find themselves switching to English to communicate. The language difference is accompanied by other visible differences. Adams County buggies have no tops open to the weather in all seasons, a design that reflects the community's Swiss heritage rather than the covered buggy style common across most American Amish settlements. The community has maintained the practice of yodeling, a distinctly Swiss musical tradition that has no equivalent in other American Amish communities. The yodeling heard in Adams County is not a performance for tourists. It is a living musical practice that has survived the journey from Switzerland to Indiana and that distinguishes this community from every other Amish settlement in the country. Daviess County. The Amish community of Daviess County in southern Indiana is identifiable to experienced Amish observers by something that cannot be seen, it can only be heard. The Amish of Daviess County speak with a Southern American accent. This is not a subtle regional inflection. It is a pronounced twang that immediately distinguishes a Daviess County Amish person from an Amish person raised in Lancaster County, Holmes County, or Elkhart-LaGrange. The accent is the product of generations of immersion in the linguistic environment of southern Indiana, a region whose broader population has always spoken with the distinctly Southern American patterns that characterize much rural Midwest south of Indianapolis. The Amish of Daviess County arrived in this region in the 19th century and have been surrounded by that accent ever since. Their Pennsylvania Dutch has absorbed Southern American phonetic patterns the way any language absorbs the sounds of the environment in which it lives. The result is an Amish community that practices all the traditional markers of old order life: plain dress, horse-drawn transportation, 8th grade education, rejection of grid electricity while speaking both Pennsylvania Dutch and English with an accent that would not sound out of place at a country music performance in Nashville. Daviess County is the most southerly community among the 10 largest Amish settlements in America, and the accent reflects that geography in a way that no other marker does. Garnett, Kansas. The Amish community near Garnett, Kansas, has a practice that would be considered unusual in almost any other Amish settlement. Its members are permitted to use automobiles for work purposes. They do not own cars. Car ownership remains prohibited, consistent with the ordnung that governs Amish life across virtually all affiliations. But the Garnett community has allowed its members to drive cars as a practical accommodation to the demands of the work that supports the community's economy in that specific geographic and economic context. This exception is not unprecedented. A similar practice existed for a period in the Arthur, Illinois community, though it eventually declined there. The theological and practical logic behind the exception follows the pattern the Amish apply to technology generally. The question is not whether a technology exists, but whether its use in a specific form threatens community cohesion. A car used to drive to a work site and back, without personal use and without ownership, occupies a different position in this analysis than a car owned by a family and used for personal transportation at will. The Garnett community's accommodation of work cars represents one of the more pragmatic responses to economic reality that the Amish have produced a community that found a way to maintain its theological position on car ownership while acknowledging the practical requirements of earning a living in a region where the distances and economic opportunities made horse-drawn transportation insufficient. Aylmer, Ontario. The Amish community at Aylmer, Ontario, is the oldest Amish settlement in Canada, established in the 1820s, predating the next oldest existing Canadian community by decades and carrying within its history the full arc of Amish experience in Canada, from the earliest settlements through the post-World War II influx of Amish, who came to Canada seeking a refuge for their non-resistant beliefs during a period of intense American military mobilization. Aylmer is home to Pathway Publishers, arguably the most influential Amish publishing house in the world, and the organization responsible for widely read publications including Family Life, Young Companion, and Blackboard Bulletin, which together reach Amish households across North America and have shaped the community's conversation about faith, family, education, and community standards for decades. Aylmer is associated with what researchers call the reformist Amish, a strand of the tradition that emphasizes high moral standards and genuine spiritual formation while maintaining very low levels of technology adoption. The reformist position, associated with Aylmer and related communities in locations including Unity, Maine, and Fertile, Minnesota, represents a theological emphasis distinct from both the most conservative technological restrictionists and the most progressive technology-adopting communities. The Aylmer community is small enough to be overlooked by most outside observers of Amish life, and significant enough that its publications reach virtually every Amish household in North America on a regular basis. Etheridge, Tennessee. The Amish community at Etheridge, Tennessee, is the largest Amish settlement in the American South, home to several thousand people across multiple church districts in Lawrence County, roughly an hour's drive south of Nashville. Etheridge is unusual among large Amish communities in several ways. The community traces its founding to a migration of Swartzentruber Amish from Holmes County, Ohio in 1944, making it one of the oldest Swartzentruber settlements outside of Ohio, and it has maintained the distinctly conservative practices of that affiliation across 8 decades in the Tennessee landscape. The rolling hills and hollows of Lawrence County create a farming environment that differs significantly from the flat cornfields of Indiana or the managed pastoral landscape of Lancaster County. And the community has adapted to that environment while maintaining its conservative theological standards. The most practically unusual feature of the Etheridge community for outside visitors is its openness. More than 100 homesteads within the community have signs at their entrances advertising products for sale, baked goods, produce, handmade items, furniture. 2 horse and wagon tours of the community are available for visitors, though both are operated by non-Amish guides rather than by community members. This combination, a Swartzentruber-affiliated community among the most conservative Amish affiliations in America, that actively maintains a roadside commercial presence and accommodates tourist interest, represents a balance of insularity and economic engagement that is unusual for any community at this level of conservatism. Bolivia settlement. In 2015, a New Order Amish community was established near Santa Cruz in Bolivia, the first and currently only Amish settlement on the South American continent that has survived and continued to function as a genuine Amish community. The Bolivia settlement came about through an unusual process. Old colony Mennonite communities in Bolivia, which share some cultural and theological DNA with the Amish through their common Anabaptist heritage, reached out to New Order Amish in North America about the possibility of affiliation. The result was the establishment of a new Amish settlement in Bolivian territory, Amish families farming South American soil, speaking Pennsylvania Dutch in a Spanish-speaking country, maintaining plain dress in a tropical climate, and building the community structures of Amish life, the church district, the one-room schoolhouse, the rotating home worship service in an environment as far removed from Lancaster County as it is possible to travel while remaining on the same continent. A second settlement was established around the same time in Argentina in the agricultural Pampas region, but that community eventually disbanded, leaving Bolivia as the sole surviving Amish presence in South America. The Bolivia community is small and not well documented in publicly available sources, which reflects both its geographic remoteness from the centers of Amish scholarship and its recent founding. It exists as evidence that the Amish community's growth, which has doubled the population every 20 years for the past century, is not limited by geography in the way that most outside observers assume. Mackinac County. The Amish community of Mackinac County in Michigan's Upper Peninsula occupies one of the most remote and geographically unusual positions of any Amish settlement in North America. Mackinac County is one of the most sparsely populated counties east of the Mississippi River. The land is heavily forested. The distances are vast. The winters are severe in a way that goes beyond the cold winters of Ohio or Pennsylvania. Land prices are dramatically lower than in the established Amish heartland settlements, where land pressure has become a significant challenge for growing communities. The first Amish households arrived in Mackinac County in 2008, moving from downstate Michigan, and the community has grown slowly since then as families have arrived from Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and Wisconsin, people specifically seeking a more remote home with fewer connections to the surrounding world. The community is technologically conservative. Cell phones, which have become more common in some larger Amish settlements, are strictly prohibited here. The remoteness of the location enforces a degree of separation from the English world that more accessible communities cannot maintain regardless of their ordnung. Young men from the Mackinac County community work in a fish packing plant near the village of Nobbinway, alongside members of the Ojibwa Nation, filleting and packing whitefish that is shipped primarily to New York City. These Amish workers are well informed about United States-Canada trade policy as it affects the fishing industry because the trade policy directly affects their work despite eschewing television and most other mass media. The most remote Amish community east of the Mississippi is, in its own way, as connected to the global economy as any other. The 10 communities described in this video represent a range that most people who think about the Amish never encounter. From the tricycle-riding snowbirds of a Florida neighborhood to the fish-packing workers of a remote Michigan forest, from the yodeling Swiss farmers of Indiana to the South American settlement farming Bolivian soil, from the most conservative Schwarzentuber homesteads, where no indoor plumbing exists and no bicycle is permitted, to the Kansas community where a work car is an acceptable accommodation to the demands of daily economic life. What these 10 communities share is the foundational commitment that defines every Amish settlement regardless of affiliation,